Please, please remain standing for the playing of Jamaica's national anthem. Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister and Minister of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Dr. Michelle Charles, Member of Parliament, St. Thomas Eastern. His Worship, the Mayor, Councillor Michael U. Morant Bay, members of the St. Thomas Municipal Corporation, Bishop Devon Taylor from the Zion Fellowship Spiritual United Baptist Church, Miss Dawn Cargill, the beneficiary, Mr. Junior Leslie, Alcar Construction and Haulage Company Limited and other project partners, members of the new social housing team from the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good afternoon. We are here this afternoon to join in the handing over ceremony of this beautiful two-bedroom unit to our well-deserved beneficiary, Ms. Dawn Cargill, under the new social housing program. And at this time, I'll invite Bishop Devon Taylor to invoke God's presence in our midst.
Good evening, everyone. To our Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, our Minister, Michelle Charles, and our councillors. Most righteous and ever doing, Father God, at this moment, we give you thanks and praise for your keeping care and your tender mercy towards us. As our Prime Minister is here this afternoon, God, we just want you to lift him up. Secondly, to the well-beloved family that is going to get the sauce this evening, just want you to bless the home, bless the family that is going to be in that home, and bless everyone. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you very much.
We thank you, Bishop Taylor, for inviting God's presence in our midst. And at this time, I must apologize for the absence of our permanent secretary, the Honorable Audrey Sewell. And I'll go right into giving the overview of the new social housing program. This program was developed as part of efforts to ensure that all Jamaicans achieve their fullest potential through effective social protection. The central mandate of the program is to improve the housing conditions of the indigent and other vulnerable persons by providing quality, affordable, and sustainable housing. The program is divided into three modalities. Modality 1 is the provision of indigent housing. This component is targeted at the household level and will see the construction of housing units for individual households. These will be primarily detached, single-family housing construction on lands owned by the family or which they have been given permission to occupy. The benefits are equitably distributed across all 63 constituencies, with each constituency receiving 5 per annum in 1, 2, or 3 bedroom units, amounting to approximately 315 units per annum under this modality. The second modality is the relocation of vulnerable communities. This is where communities which are not yet established and are in environmentally sensitive areas and other areas deemed unstable for residential development will be relocated. The third modality is the upgrading of tenements, or what we call big yards. This modality will see the upgrading of the physical structure in tenements and similar communities. Where necessary, steps will be taken to regularize the community. Each MP is invited to submit one such project per annum. For all three modalities, the beneficiaries are identified by your Member of Parliament. The approval process for the recommended beneficiaries for all three modalities differ in some aspects. For 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, which Ms. Cargill will be receiving today, the Member of Parliament for each constituency identify and submit properly completed application forms and the relevant documents to the new social housing program. For 5 indigent or other vulnerable persons that are currently living in substandard conditions within their communities or constituencies annually. The project officers then conduct preliminary assessment followed by a site visit to verify the reported needs. Selected applications for assistance are then processed and recommendations submitted to our Project Oversight Committee for review and approval. For modality 2 and 3, MPs are invited to submit a letter of request for the relocation of the upgrading of communities, along with a report to include the size of the area, the number of persons, the rationale for selection, age, and history of the settlement. Consideration is given to factors such as location, environmental vulnerability, the impact of the community on areas such as crime, public and private partnership, the availability of suitable lands for relocation. Having completed the necessary due diligence and approval process for the recommended beneficiaries, the procurement process is then carried out, and this includes finalizing the designs for the housing, evaluating the bids, and awarding the contract for the construction of the dwelling unit to the lowest responsive tenor. The construction for the housing units then commences with the contract administration and monitoring taking place simultaneously. Once the house is completed, then the house is handed over to the beneficiary. In today's case, Ms. Dawn Cargill. We ensure that the services received for the construction of the units are satisfactorily provided and that the rates are fair and reasonable and that all the relevant sections of the FAA Act have been followed in addition to the procurement law and guidelines. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I will ask you to put your hands together and help me to welcome your Member of Parliament, Dr. Michelle Charles, who will bring remarks.
What a clap swall. The Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, Minister of Economic Growth and Job Creation, His Worship the Mayor Michael Hugh, Councillor Michael McLeod, Bishop Devon Taylor, and family. Good afternoon, family. Good afternoon, everyone. Prime Minister, welcome to Eastern St. Thomas. I give God thanks for you, Prime Minister. I thank you personally for taking the time out to come to St. Thomas and putting St. Thomas under your wings. We know how government works, and sometimes funds that are promised are not normally spent where they are. But you, Prime Minister, have kept your promise, and you've kept St. Thomas right in the front with the urban center and the South Coast Highway, and we want to tell you on behalf of the people of St. Thomas that we're grateful for keeping us there. The new social housing program is helping many Jamaicans all around Jamaica who would otherwise not be able to own their own home. Their income would not qualify them for a mortgage, and sometimes their families, most of them, their families can't afford to help them either. So Prime Minister, thank you for creating this program and for personally coming to cut these ribbons. Every time I see the Prime Minister cut a ribbon on a house, my heart is full because I know how it feels to own your first house. But a house is just an empty building. When you see the joy on the face of the recipients, you know that they will make that house a home. Right, Ms. Dawn? You'll make that house a home where you cook food and invite your Member of Parliament to come and eat. Yes. So on behalf of Mr. Henry and Mr. Jones and Ms. Cargill, I want to say thank you to the Prime Minister and the entire ministry for this HOPE program, and to encourage you to continue to help those most vulnerable people in Jamaica. May God continue to bless us all. Have a good day.
Thank you, MP. Thank you, Doc. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and make your MP welcome again in our parish. MP, thank you. You have always seek to lobby for houses in your constituency. We have about 5 more coming on soon. We have sent a letter to you that we are ready to go into the second phase. The Prime Minister will talk more on this. So you have to locate lands in your constituency that are owned by the government, and they will jump on it. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute pleasure to introduce at this time the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister and Minister of Economic Growth and Job Creation, who will bring the main address. Please put your hands together and make him feel welcome.
Thank you very much, Richard. Let me acknowledge your Member of Parliament, your Mayor, and the Councillor who are here. It is always good to be in the parish of St. Thomas. The reception is always exceptional. And I know that the people in St. Thomas are very understanding of the challenges that the government would face in trying to undertake some of the massive infrastructure work that we are doing. First, I want to say to you that I follow all the protests and demonstrations, all the quarrels and all the complaints that are placed on social media and in traditional media. And I have been driving around in St. Thomas now for more than 3 hours, and I can understand. In fact, I do understand why people would be upset and why fatigue would set in. The project is going to be for some time. It's not going to be completed right away. I am of the view that the South Coast Road Improvement Project could move much faster than it is now. And therefore, I am going to be looking on the logistics and management arrangements to ensure that it moves much more quickly than it is presently doing. Having said that, I'm very pleased with the developments that we have put in place for the parish. Today, I opened the Fire Brigade Center, the new office in Yalas. So the parish now has a modern fire brigade facility. And I drove past the works going on at the Morant Bay Town Center. Work has begun. And on the South Coast Road Improvement Project, work is proceeding without question. There are areas that they have completed, areas that are in an advanced stage, and areas, sadly, that are behind. But one thing you can be certain of is that when it is complete, nobody can say that St. Thomas is a forgotten parish. You will have probably the best network of main roads going through your parish. You will have the most modern and advanced town center, in addition to other investments that are to come, not just from the government, but from the private sector. There is a significant increase in interest in St. Thomas for tourism, particularly business process outsourcing, and you've always had this industry, the quarrying and mining, and people are now taking a serious look at how they can deploy capital in St. Thomas. So your parish is set for a boom to come in the next 5 years. You're going to see that unfold. So I'm very, very happy about where we are in St. Thomas, but at the same time, I understand and I beg your pardon for the distress that you are experiencing because of the construction of the road. Now, having said that, I am here today to hand over the 106th housing unit under the new social housing program. 106. Just very quickly, so that we understand what the new social housing program is about. Jamaica has always had a social housing program it has taken various forms. The social housing strategy sometimes would have been executed merely by giving a grant to someone to repair and upgrade their home. In other instances, the government would totally rebuild a home for someone. The Ministry of Local Government, through its indigent housing program, sometimes would have identified someone that is indigent, meaning that they are, they're probably elderly, they don't have any means of income, they're probably a shut-in, and they would build a home for them. But it was very sporadic. Now, what we have done is to take the resources of government that were normally dispersed in various entities and doing sporadic things, and put it in a more coordinated approach to providing housing for the most needy and the most vulnerable Jamaicans. So if you look at this picture, you will see a structure representing what existed before the new social housing program intervened. Now, to be clear, the beneficiaries of the new social housing program are persons who are usually unemployed or they have no income, which means that they have no means of paying a mortgage. They are not able to afford a house on the open market or even a house that is partially subsidized by the government, but they live in substandard housing conditions. Usually, we want to identify households with children or pregnant or lactating mothers, large households, and we want to intervene in those circumstances. So I'm sure that every Jamaican would say, I qualify for a house under the social housing program. But really we are looking for the beneficiaries that are the most vulnerable, the most in need. And we have gone through a process of identifying the persons to ensure that when we give out the house, that no one can say the beneficiary did not deserve it. And I'm sure that the beneficiary today, who is Don Cargill, no relation to the project manager, I'm sure, that Ms. Cargill is indeed deserving. It would be yourself and your daughter. That would be the occupants of this home. Very good. Now, this house is a 2-bedroom unit. It is constructed at a cost of 5.2 million Jamaican dollars. You're not going to get a 2-bedroom unit anywhere for that price. What we are doing is to develop a mechanism, develop a system where we can deliver these homes much more rapidly than we are doing now. So I believe we have refined the system now. And you are seeing us, when we started out, we were at 7.9, almost $8 million for some of the homes we were building. Now we have got the prices all the way down, and I'm not sure we can go any lower because of the recent inflation that has happened and the disruption in supply chains. But I think we are now at a kind of stable pricing for these units, and we are now delivering these units on an average 3 months. Now, if that isn't fantastic, I don't know what else is, to be able to deliver the units at these very affordable prices and with such speed. I remember when we started, it took us 1 year to build one house. But we have refined the system. So next month, I will be handing over 20 units. Now, I'm saying it publicly because Richard cannot let me down. 20 units will be available for delivery next month in November. No, I'm not going to go up to 30. I'll say 20 to be safe. because, rain can fall, all kinds of issues can happen, and we don't finish them on time. But I think we are safe in saying we can hand over 20 next month. Now, if we are able to do 20 each month, you can see that the program will eventually get to all the people we need. Our estimate, based upon what we are seeing coming into the members of parliament in terms of applications, is that there are about 6,000 Jamaicans who are living in conditions like these, the worst of the worst, the really bad situations. And we're going to try and treat with them. So if we treat with those that are really at the bottom, we would have improved the level for everyone in a fair way. Now, remember, the government is also investing heavily in ensuring that we can bring houses on the open market and some subsidized housing through various government programs. So for persons who are working but whose income would be just above or at minimum wage, you are still able to get an NHT mortgage. The question is whether or not you will be able to afford a house for the mortgage you can get. And that is what the government is working on, because most of the houses that are coming on the open market are above $12 million. And most people earning minimum wage would not be able to afford a mortgage for $12 million. And so what we're trying to do with government resources, with the NHT, is to what we call make the market, to develop the market, to get contractors and developers into the space to build houses that low-income earners can afford. And so the direction that we have given to the NHT is that their houses mustn't pass $10 million. And we will have to find ways to ensure that low-income earners are able to afford these homes using mortgages. Why are we going this route? We have to go this route to get ahead of unplanned development. Now, as I drive around the country, and one of the reasons why I do this, which is to come and hand over the units, cut the ribbons. Yes, it looks good. You get a nice little picture. It makes the news. But the real reason is to be out in the country, to interact with you, the people. I hear the little complaints. People whisper some things to you. You get a better sense of what people are thinking, what are their concerns, what are their issues. And then when I get back into office, I try to figure out how can I change government policy or improve government policy to address the issues. So being out here and being on the road is a very good experience for me. So when I do have my meetings with the NWA and the other agencies, I will certainly be your greatest advocate in ensuring that there is some improvement. But as it relates to housing, what we see happening is an increase in persons trying to find their housing solution by their own means. And oftentimes what that means is that we see a piece of land over there and we go and settle it illegally. Sometimes we don't even think it's illegal. We just see the land. We know that it has always been there and nobody don't claim it. So we go and we set up shop on it, or rather set up house on it. And before you know it, it's an entire community. There is no water, there is no regular services. And it becomes a difficult community to service. What we want to do is to have enough housing solutions. So regardless of your state, you are able to afford a housing solution in a structured, well-planned community. And that's what we want. So remember now, for decades, how we have settled is informally. For decades, indeed, for hundreds of years, informal settlement of land. Now what the administration is trying to do is to get ahead of the demand for housing and land settlement by having more planned communities come to market so that you can participate in it. And I know if persons were able to get a mortgage for a house that they can afford on a piece of land that is properly titled with proper road, sewage, garbage disposal, water, and electricity, people would rather take that than go and catch up somewhere else on a hillside, on a river bank, or somewhere like that. And so what we are trying to do is to make housing development accessible for everyone. I know it's new, and when I went to Clifton in St. Catherine speaking to the residents there, their view was that government now going to do that for we. In other words, the trust level as to whether or not government will really seek to do development that the average person, the person whose income is close to minimum wage, will be able to afford it. You know, there is disbelief that government will do it. Well, I'm here to tell you that we are doing it. And this is a part of it. The beneficiary of this house pays nothing for it. So the government subsidy, meaning the money that we put in it and you benefit from, is 100%. And that is going to the most needy. So government has started to do this through our social housing program. The next phase of it now is to actually build housing schemes, communities where persons can afford it. And that's what we're working on now. That's what we're trying to do. And I believe that if we are able to get many of these schemes in St. Thomas, we could radically change the face of St. Thomas, change the communities in which you live. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's what we're asking you to continue to give your support to the government. So let's get this done. Just as though we're getting the road done, we're getting your town center done, we're putting in new fire station, we're going to be looking at putting in a school here. We're going to do the housing and land settlement as well as bring in more industry. So St. Thomas definitely will not be the forgotten parish that we oftentimes refer to it in the past. St. Thomas, great things are happening there. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to turn over this house now to the beneficiary. We have a new feature to the program, which is that the beneficiary will sign a contract. We call it a social contract. It's just a simple document which outlines the duties and responsibilities of the beneficiary. Now, once we start to expand the number of houses, you are going to find that some beneficiaries may at the beginning be deserving of the house, but who knows, their circumstances may change down the road, and then they don't need the house anymore. And then suddenly they turn it into a shop. Or they migrate and rent it out. No, we don't want that. The benefit was not for that purpose. So there are some duties and responsibilities there for the maintenance of the house, that if you plan to expand on the house, you should let us know, because there is no way that a government house should be illegally expanded. Meaning that, you know, if you're going to do any construction at all, you need to get approval from your parish council. And so we need to be advised beforehand so that we can help you to seek approval for any expansion on the house. And we don't want to put up a structure that then turns out to be a problem to the community, that it turns out to be a bar that operates all hours of the night and disturb the neighbors. No. So we have learned from experience that we have had before, right, where we have given units over to beneficiaries and they have used it to do all kinds of things other than for what purpose it was. So we are putting these now in a contract that will specify what your obligations and duties are in the House. So let's go and cut the ribbon and give you your keys. Thank you. I'm going to sign first? Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, it was an absolute pleasure to let us put our hands together once more and make the Prime Minister feel welcome. Thank you, Prime Minister. And at this time, I invite Ms. Dawn Cargill, beneficiary and lady of the moment, to move the vote of thanks.
Good evening. The Right Honorable Prime Minister of Jamaica under Holness and other member of his team, Member of Parliament for Eastern St. Thomas, Dr. Charles, and her team, Mayor of Morant Bay and Councillor for the Portman Division, Mr. Michael Yu and his team, the contractor and his team, other invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, good evening. Today I am overjoyed to be this housing product before Pitcher give an indication of the state of my previous housing condition. I am forever grateful to those that developed the project concept and to the selection committee who know of my needs and select my family as a beneficiary. Again, to the government on behalf of my family, I are humbled and grateful. May God bless you. Thank you.
Ms. Cargill, we're most happy for you, and we're certain that you and your family, as the Prime Minister said, will enjoy your new home and continue to be model citizens in your community, parish, and the country. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attendance and participation here today. We have come to the end of this part of the program. And Prime Minister, before I go, I would like to especially thank the contractor, Alcar Construction, and his team, the engineers that come out here weekly, Prime Minister, on the road to monitor Sidian Morrison, Candice, and Mr. Kidd, Ariana Dixon. I thank you. And Prime Minister, now we'll ask you, the Member of Parliament, the Mayor, and Ms. Cargill to sign the social contract and participate in the ribbon cutting exercise. We'll break for about 30 seconds, Prime Minister, to just do some adjustment.
definitely.
Ready, guys? Yeah. Ready? Yes, yes. All right, ready for signing?
Right, switch over. No. Very nice. So you are going to take care of this house, and you're going to be a very active citizen in the community. You're going to be an ambassador for hope, and I'm certain that your daughter and the rest of your family members will benefit significantly from having this. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very good. All right, everybody's ready?
1 second, sir.
After a million. Ready? 1 million. Oh, where this one come from? Very good.
Missy Cat.
And let me hand over your keys now. Keys to your own home. Very nice.
Very good.
Wow. All right, so you can let us see inside.
1 second, sir.